Short Takes is a series of brief biblical worldview perspectives on current events. Because of the Supreme Court's impending reversal of the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision, front and center in the public eye right now is abortion. Passion is high on both sides. Using the labels commonly associated with each side of the debate, those who are pro-life are hopeful abortion on demand is about to be written out of federal law, while those who are pro-abortion are furious that what they consider an important women's right is about to be quashed. I am firmly pro-life, have been for decades. I've served on the board of the Pregnancy Resource Center in our area. I was the director of a local chapter of a national pro-life advocacy group and have been a fervent advocate for the life and rights of the unborn. So I'm well aware of the arguments on both sides of the issue. It's not the purpose of this short take to list all of the many excellent pro-life points. Others have done that far better than I. I'll give some links to those in the comments below. What I want to do here is something that I haven't seen much of in all those excellent pro-life apologetics, and that is center the entire discussion on a solid biblical worldview foundation. It starts in Genesis 9. Noah's family has just emerged from the ark after the waters of the flood have receded. Human society, gone so horribly wrong before the flood, is given another chance. The mandate that had been given to Adam and Eve is renewed there in Genesis 9. And we read, "So God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, 'Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be on every beast of the earth, on every bird of the air, on all that move on the earth, and on all the fish of the sea. They are given into your hand. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. I have given you all things, even as the green herbs.'" Now, it appears that humanity's diet before the flood was solely vegetarian, because this provision of meat is new. It's likely that earth conditions post-flood were dramatically different, necessitating the inclusion of the nutrients provided by this additional food source. Because animals are known to be a part of mankind's diet, God alienated humans and animals, setting a natural caution between them so that animals wouldn't be so easily killed. He didn't want them to be because, and here's the central issue, life is special. And so God makes something clear. Man is to show respect for life, including life of the animals that he's now permitted to eat. Look, we read on, verse 4, "But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood. Surely for your lifeblood I will demand a reckoning. From the hand of every beast I will require it, and from the hand of man. From the hand of every man's brother I will require the life of man." Then the form of the communication changes from simple narrative to formal declaration, represented in most Bibles by the way that the text is typeset in verses 6 and 7. It goes from normal narrative paragraphs to poetic verse. Verses 6 and 7 were meant to be memorized. They established a ground rule, and maybe even better to say they set the ground rule for all human society and culture. We read, verse 6, "Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he made man. And as for you, be fruitful and multiply. Bring forth abundantly in the earth and multiply in it." Now, this is the first time in the Bible that God sets forth a guideline for how human beings are to conduct themselves collectively. It's nothing less than the mandate for human civil government, and it rests on the principle of the sanctity of human life. Because humans are created in God's image, their life is special. So special, if someone kills another, more others are to take action together to kill the killer. This establishes the penalty of what's called capital punishment for murder. Now, what's stated in brief here, in Genesis 9, finds much elaboration in later scripture. The difference between killing and murder is established, and then different kinds of murder are sorted out, premeditated versus accidental and so forth. And then penalties are established. Exemptions are given, but all of it aimed at achieving justice. But, and this is important, all of it is based on the premise that murder is a grievous wrong because of the sanctity of human life. And that principle is made clear in Genesis 9, where God calls for people to together remove the murderer from their midst by ending his life. Now, for some, that seems a contradiction. They reason, if life is so special, why kill a killer? How does another death provide justice for a prior death? It's a good question, and brings us round to the point that God intends people comprising a society to learn in the practice of capital punishment. Look carefully at the way that God says it in verse 5 of Genesis 9. He says, "Surely for your lifeblood I will demand a reckoning. From the hand of every beast I will require it, and from the hand of man. From the hand of every man's brother I will require the life of man." Now that phrase, demand a reckoning, translates a word, the essence of which means to seek the truth of a thing. It's an inquiry that aims to make sure that justice prevails. So, an investigation is to be made when someone is killed. If and when the guilty party is discovered, others are to collectively move to execute the guilty. That's what it means when it says, "From the hand of every man's brother I will require the life of man." All of this presumes some kind of system for both the investigation and apprehension of murderers, their trial to determine guilt or innocence, and then, if guilty, their execution. Now, seeing this is the first time in the Bible that God calls for this kind of collection action by people, and it centers on justice with the sanctity of life as the premier principle, we conclude that is the foundation on which the mandate for human civil government rests. So sacred is human life. Murderers are to be killed as the ultimate punishment. And the way that justice is to be pursued in a case of murder reinforces the entire society's idea on the sanctity of life. Executing a murderer isn't at all a contradiction. It's a way to reinforce in everyone's mind and heart that people are not to denigrate the value of others. Murder, properly defined by the inquiry that God mandated, indicates a murderous disregard for the one principle on which all justice ultimately lies, the sanctity of human life. That disregard must be excised. It must be removed in a manner that reinforces the value of human life for all of society. With that as a foundation, we return to the subject of abortion, and we ask, when does the life that we're to protect a society-wide respect for begin? Well, biologically, it begins at the moment of conception, when the 23 chromosomes of the mother unite with the 23 from the father. Everything else is just unfolding potential. It's time, nourishment, and the opportunity to develop into what is already there in potential, which is in fact no different from everyone watching or listening to this right now. There is a continuity of essence from conception to death, at whatever age that occurs. The only difference is location. Some die in a hospital, some die on a battlefield, some in bed at home, some on a dark desert highway, some die in Calcutta, some in Los Angeles, and some die in the womb. What they are isn't a matter of biology or science. It isn't even really a matter for philosophical debate, since philosophy is concerned with categories of being, issues of nature and existence. The sole reason some die in the womb, because they are murdered there, is because in 1973, a panel of 9 men revoked the status of personhood from the unborn and made it legal. By the standards of a biblical worldview, abortion is the intentional murder of an innocent human being. Just because it's legal does not make it right. And if it isn't right, it can't be classed as a human right. It is a profound wrong and ought to be corrected. Now, again, you can see the links below for further pro-life apologetics and answers to common pro-abortion objections.